Today we're going to look at downwind sailing and jibing on the catamaran if you're not using a spinnaker. Joe here for Joyrider TV, coming from Wildwind in Vasiliki in Greece. So we're going to take a look at sailing the boat downwind and jibing, and on this occasion we're going to look at that without using the spinnaker. So let's take a look. So before we can look at jibing the boat, we have to look at sailing downwind on the catamaran. And before we can look at sailing the boat downwind, we need to know what is meant by apparent wind. If we take this arrow as the true wind, the wind that is blowing, by the boat moving forwards, it creates its own wind, which we'll call induced wind. So because the boat is moving forwards, this induced wind would be in this direction. The combination of the induced wind and the true wind is going to make apparent wind, which is the wind that we feel on the boat, and that is going to end up something like this. This is as far downwind as we can sail on a catamaran. If we sail any further downwind, it's going to be inefficient. If we sail any closer towards the wind, we're not going to get to where we want to go to. So this is the angle that we're going to sail at, which means we're effectively sailing 45 degrees to the true wind on either side. The way that we can see what the apparent wind on the boat is doing is by having telltales on the rigging. So what we use here as telltales is we take some videotape, VHS, and we tie this onto the bridle wires at the front. And then what this shows us is the apparent wind, the combination of the true wind and the induced wind that we create by going forwards. What we're looking for on the downwind with the apparent wind is these telltales flying straight across the boat at 90 degrees. So if they're flying too far forwards like this, it means that we're sailing too deep downwind and we won't be efficient and we'll be going very slowly. So if that's the case, we need to turn up towards the wind and they'll come back like this. If they are flying too far back like this, it means we'll be on more of a beam reach and we won't actually be going downwind at all. So there we need to turn more downwind by pulling the rudders towards us, and that will bring our apparent wind back to this 90-degree angle. So if we're sailing along and we're experiencing gusts and lulls in the wind, if the wind slows down, what's going to happen is the boat is going to slow down as well, which is going to make our induced wind less and bring the apparent wind further from behind, which means in a lull where the wind is lighter, we need to turn a little bit towards the wind to keep our apparent wind the same. If we sail into a gust and we start going faster, we'll get more apparent wind, more induced wind, bringing our apparent wind back. So then we need to turn more downwind to keep it the same. This is the same for all wind strengths. It's by turning the boat on the downwind point of sail that you're controlling the power and getting the boat going faster in the direction that you want to go in. Okay, so here we are. Before we look at the jibe, we just need to be in a good sailing position. So that good sailing position should always be with the tiller extension over your shoulder and always holding on to the main sheet. On our downwind point of sail, we're generally going to have the traveller set out somewhere between the tow strap and the end, so about halfway between there, generally speaking. We'll get a much better idea of this once we have a look on board on the water. This is just for the mechanics of how we're going to go through the jibe. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to check the area that we're going to jibe into. That's going to be down here. Once we've done that, we're going to make sure we're sailing on our proper course, which is with the apparent wind coming straight across the boat. This is going to be optimal for our jibing angle. Once we've done that, if we're sailing with a crew, we're going to warn the crew, ready to jibe. Crew's going to say, I'm ready. And then that means we can get into position ready to jibe. So the difference here between the tack and the jibe is with the jibe, we're going to get into position first before we actually start to turn the boat. So here we're going to come up onto our knees on the trampoline facing the back, and then we're going to put the tiller extension round onto the new side first. So then that means this arm is safe from the main sheet coming across. From this position, we still want it to be sailing the boat on our proper broad reach, so we don't want to start steering until we're ready to turn. All right, and then when we're ready, we're just going to push the rudders. You can think of it in pushing back to where you were sitting before, and that's going to turn the boat the right way. Take one hand on the main sheet, and as you feel it become loose, we're just going to guide that across your head, and then once that's gone across, we're going to sit down on the new side, straighten up and look forwards. Okay, so we'll just go through that again. So check where we're going to jibe into, check the apparent wind is correct, into the middle of the boat, stick to the new side, hold on to the main sheet, push the rudders. When the main sheet goes loose, guide it across, and then straighten up and sit down. And then once you're sitting down, then you can adjust the course on the new side. Okay, and just one more time, here we go. So, proper sailing position, check where you're going to jibe into, check the apparent wind is correct, warn the crew, ready to jibe, and then onto the boat in the middle on your knees, stick round the back, hold the stick on the new side, main sheet just across your head when it goes loose, and then you can sit down on the new side and straighten up as soon as that's gone across, and then adjust your course once you're there. Okay, so before we can go for a jibe, the most important thing before the jibe is that we have the boat sailing on a proper broad reach. The way we determine the broad reach is by looking at our telltales on the front, and we're going to make sure that those bad boys are flying straight across the boat, which means our apparent wind is at 90 degrees. Okay, and that is the best angle to jibe from. So we're on a good broad reach here. There's not a lot of wind, but we can still demonstrate. So what we'll do with the jibe is, having established this course, we'll then go into the middle of the boat on our knees, and then we'll take the tiller extension and put it onto the new side, grabbing it the other side of the main sheet, and then we're just going to push this across, guiding the main sheet across our heads so we know exactly when it's coming across, and then looking forwards for this angle again, so we're getting the apparent wind flying across the boat at 90 degrees again on the new side. Okay, so key points: apparent wind across the boat at 90 degrees. Check where you're going to jibe into, which will be down here, and then we're going to get into the middle of the boat with the stick on the new side before we initiate the turn. So we'll go into the middle of the boat, we'll put the stick round onto the new side, and then we'll push the stick, guiding the main sheet over the head. Just give the battens a little pop there because the wind is very light now. And then as soon as it's come across, we want to look forwards at the earliest opportunity to make sure that our course is good on the new side. Okay, so before the jibe, we make sure the boat is on the broad reach with the apparent wind flying across at 90 degrees. We'll then go into the middle of the boat, put the tiller extension round onto the new side. We'll then push, and we're just guiding the main sheet across. We're not forcing it. And then as soon as we can, we'll look forwards, get the boat on the correct course, which is going to be 90 degrees apparent wind. We're just going to have the apparent wind flying straight across the boat at 90 degrees, so we're watching the telltales there, checking the area that we're going to turn into, and then we'll go into the middle of the boat first, pass the stick to the new side, grab it on the new side, and then we're just going to guide the main sheet across to the new side as we turn. And then as soon as we can, once the boom or the sail has come across, then onto the new side, and we'll adjust our course and swap the jib over. Nice little puff there, make this next jibe a bit more sporty. So again, getting on the right course first on the broad reach, and when we're ready, into the middle of the boat, stick on the new side, pushing the stick. When the main sheet goes light, just guiding it across. As soon as it comes across, looking forwards again. As the wind gets stronger, we're going to straighten up as soon as the boom comes across, as soon as the sail comes across, and then get settled and then adjust the course. All right, so one more jibe. Here we go. The course is good. We'll move into the middle of the boat, stick onto the new side, pushing the stick. Sail comes across, and then adjusting once we've finished. So there we go. I hope that's been informative, useful and interesting to watch, and your jibing should be better and safer now if you employ that small amount of technique. Thanks once again to everybody who's been supporting the channel by one of many means. So for everybody who's been to Joyrider, totaljoyrider.com, and made a purchase of a rather groovy looking t-shirt or hoodie from there. Thanks to everybody who's been supporting the channel through Patreon. You can support the channel through Patreon, just follow the link below. If you don't know where the link is below, just if you're using an iPad or an iPhone or something similar, just underneath the picture there's a small arrow pointing downwards. If you push that arrow, then you'll see the description of the video and all the links below.